Welcome back to another episode of the Mom Founders Table. Today we are talking about one of my favorite words and probably one of the most recurring words when it comes to talking to my clients, talking to potential clients, talking to moms who are running businesses, and that word is capacity. We oftentimes think of capacity in terms of time, but what we don't realize is we're missing a whole part of capacity that matters. And really, when we think about being mom founders and entrepreneurs, it is incredibly hard to track our capacity, and oftentimes we don't. And we don't until it's too late. And so when women are coming to me and they're overwhelmed and they're stressed and they're trying to figure out, like, how do I juggle all these things? What in the hell, honestly, is like, you have this drive and this ambition of wanting to build something that is massive and provides great financial freedom for your family, but also, like, you're a human, and you are denying sometimes your basic human needs for the business. So today we're talking about overworking. We're talking about one of the things that is most helpful to stop overworking and how we can do that as mom founders. So typically we're only aware of the after effects, right? When we only know that we feel like shit. We only know that we aren't sleeping well. We know that our relationships are strained. We know that we are tired, either physically, emotionally, mentally, or all of the above. And a lot of times we think about treating these symptoms, right? So we think that, okay, I'm tired, so I need a break. We think that, I'm emotionally exhausted, so I just need a vacation. And well, that's great. And we definitely need breaks, mental breaks, physical breaks, time to turn off. Number one, that's usually not happening as frequently as it needs to, nor do we build businesses that allow it. But the bigger problem really is that we aren't getting to the root cause of this. And so when I'm working with clients, one of the reasons why we start with the actual schedule that they have and the time that they're spending in the business is because when you lay out exactly what you're doing and how long you're doing it for, and all of your responsibilities and all of your tasks on the table, it's very eye-opening. And this is something that, just like one of many things that a lot of business owners don't take time to do, because we just keep adding stuff on, right? Like, it's just like the business is growing, you're adding stuff to your plate, you're hiring people, then you're like, okay, well, now I have all this stuff in the business, now I have to train people, now I have to onboard people, now I'm managing a team, plus I'm doing all this other stuff in the business. And so it's just like one thing after another. Most people only know and think about their capacity in terms of, like, I have no more. Like, I'm past capacity. I have nothing left to give. And it becomes just like this autopilot hamster wheel of showing up and doing the things, but it can make you fall out of love with your business. It obviously puts a lot of strain in other areas. So we know these after effects. We know what they feel like. We know what they look like. And a lot of times we know when we're headed there. But again, if we aren't addressing why do we keep overworking, and why is my business set up to have me overworking, and why do I continue to surpass the capacity that I have and end up in this cycle, whether that's a burnout cycle or just these cycles where you're crashing and burning. Why does that keep happening? And it keeps happening because we're not tracking our capacity. We're not paying attention to the physical and emotional signs that we're headed towards capacity, and we're not actually physically tracking these things in our business. And so I want to touch on how we can do that. I want to really walk you through how we can pay more attention to our capacity, what that actually looks like physically in our business, and how to implement that so that you don't continue on this cycle, so that we don't keep pushing ourselves past capacity so far that then it takes us days or weeks or however long to come back. And I think that's the short-sighted part of this, is that a lot of times we think that overworking is going to get us ahead. We think that we'll get there quicker if we just sacrifice this, moment in time, or this week or this month or this year or years that it usually turns into. And in all reality, we're just forming habits that continue way beyond that. So the first thing I want to talk about here is, when it comes to overworking and really addressing our capacity, is we have to think of capacity, like I said, not just in terms of our time and time spent, right? Because you can have somebody who is working 30 hours a week and feels over capacity, right? So it's not just about time, especially as moms, because we have a lot of unpaid work. Let's just be honest, right? Like, from the time that we wake up, even for me, I get up at 5 a.m. and I have 2 hours to myself, but even with that 2 hours to myself, like, I'm doing something. I am actively doing something from 5 in the morning until 9 p.m. That's a long day. What is that? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours. Is my mathing there? So it's like, yeah, that's right, because 8 hours of sleep. So it's, I think that we really have to think about that. Like, as moms and as business owners, we are set up to overextend ourselves, period. Like, it is the easiest thing for us to do, especially because there's so much potential, there's so much opportunity, there's so much money to be made, there's so much impact to be made, there's so much that we can do that we just always want to do. But at what point are we like, wow, this is actually working against me? So I think that's one thing that I want to really bring your attention to, is like, just being realistic about not paying attention to making decisions based on longevity, not making decisions based on what you know is best for yourself in that moment or the season that you're in. I have a lot of moms who are, having their second or third kid, and it's just like rushing back in postpartum. It's just like, man, we don't get a lot of time to refill our cup. And so this is why, when we're thinking about capacity, we can't just think about the time that we spend working. The part that people miss when they're thinking about capacity is the actual emotional and energetic capacity that we have. So an example of this is, for my client calls, I have a max capacity of 4 client calls per day. Reason being, if I go beyond 4, my brain is like mush, right? Because of the way that I personally coach and think and develop, and the way that I give, and the discussions that I'm having that are at a higher level, I would say, it requires a much higher energetic output from me. And while it is equally fulfilling, because that is the part of my job that, it fuels me so much, I have to be conscious of that. And so an example of like how we pay attention to our capacity and implement this is like, I have that as a rule, right? So in my actual scheduling, I won't schedule more than 4 appointments per day. And so while that is something that it can be challenging, right? If an opportunity comes, or, a potential client call or something, every time I go to schedule something, if I already have 4 calls on that day's booked, I'm done. And so I think the problem is that we have an idea and such good awareness as women and as mothers, we just don't hold ourselves to it, right? Like, we think, okay, well, I'll just do 5 calls this day. I'll do 6 calls this day. I won't always do this, but today I will. And it's never just today. And that's the problem, is we're not thinking about the ripple effect of that action that we take in the short term. So all of that being said, when we're talking and thinking about what is my actual capacity, because that's what we want to find. We want to find what is my actual capacity and what I can give on a long-term basis. Like, what can I continuously give? And so Well, there's going to be periods in which you push, and there's going to be periods that are probably a little more restful. Even in those push seasons, we want to be aware of our capacity. And if we're pushing harder, then we know, okay, I'm pushing past my capacity here. So then I need to be preventative with my care and what I'm doing outside of those hours to make sure, okay, if that's going to be a longer day, or that's going to be a day that requires a lot of energy for me, I need to, go to bed earlier, or I need to, make sure I get a good workout in, or hopefully both. These are things that we have to think about. I can't get over how easy it is for us to solely think about the business by itself and forget about the human operating the business, right? It's so easy to make changes, go, implement new things. Like, it's so easy to just focus on the business. It's harder for us to take that bird's eye view. It's harder for us to think about the long term. So we have to consider our energetic capacity. We are saying yes to too much. And we say yes to too much because we don't have awareness of our capacity, or we have awareness of it but are not holding ourselves to that, which is really where, like, it's all fear-based. It's all scarcity-based. We're so afraid of missing out or losing something that we say yes. We're like, this will be a great opportunity for the business. It'll make me more visible, or I'll get this client, or I'll do this. And it's like, man, yes, and it could be for sure, but at what expense? Like, what's the cost? And so we need to start thinking about those things when we're making our decisions. We need to consider the time capacity and the energetic capacity that we actually have to give. And then we need to consider, how are we refueling to make sure that we can hold our capacity? And how are we setting and holding boundaries to make sure that we don't go over capacity? So what I want you to do is, I actually want you to list out for your business. So I'm speaking primarily to my clients who are primarily service-based business owners, but this also can work for a product-based business, or a combination of two. Like, if you're a salon spa owner and you sell products, I've had clients like that too, that have products as a secondary. So what I want you to do is, I actually want you to take all of your services, all of your offerings, everything that you have responsibility over in your business. And I want you to first, let's start with time. So list out all of these things, right? So anything that you do, like meetings, seeing clients or patients, or, depending on your profession and what you're doing, anything that you do, reviewing, creating, developing, anything that you do on a consistent basis in your business, I want you, it works really well. You could just take maybe the last couple weeks, because there's usually some variance week to week. Take the last couple weeks and look at, okay, here's all the things that I did, and how much time do these things take you? So just write down all these things, and then right next to it, this takes 2 hours, this takes 1 hour, this takes 30 minutes, yada, yada, yada. So then, okay, cool. We can add that up, and we can easily see and come up with an average of hours that we're working. And the first question to ask yourself is, do those hours fall in line with the hours that you want to be working, right? So I want to be working, I believe it's like right under 20 hours is what I'm scheduled for. And yes, there are times that I go over that. I'm not perfect, right? Especially when I hire multiple people and onboard them. And that's a whole other topic I won't get into, but it's like an extra job. So I think that first you want to just look at, okay, this is the amount of hours on average that I'm working. How many hours on average do you actually need to be working? Like, I cannot tell you how many moms feel like they can't pick up their kids from school because they're not done working yet. I purposely designed my schedule to be done at 3 p.m. because my kids get out of school at 3 p.m. So whether it's me or my husband picking them up, even if he picks them up, when my kids get home, I have the baby and I'm done. So I think again, this is just like, it sounds so simple, but sometimes like maybe you need the permission from me of like, this is your business. You have control over the hours that you work. If people don't like the hours that you work because you want to also, design that work life separation where you are present for your family, is that really somebody that you want to work with? Right? Like most of my clients are moms, so they understand it. And they obviously come to me because they're like, I want more of that. I want to structure my business in that way. So that's the first thing I want you to do is like just an audit of like the actual hours that you're spending, and then think like, okay, well, how many hours do I want to be working? What would be better? What would be more ideal? Like what would allow us to have like family time after school? What would allow us to, me to have a date night with my kids or my husband or any of those things that you're likely not doing at this point. And then the next thing that you're going to do is go through those tasks, those responsibilities, those things that you have in your business. And I want you to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 with the amount of energy it actually takes. And so I'm going to pause here for a second because every single episode here, I'm going to tell you guys things to do. But like, if you don't do them, it's not going to help you. Right. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of women come to me, because you guys are so busy. We are so busy that sometimes you just need the accountability to know like, oh, I'm meeting with Kelsey face to face. I better get this shit done. So all that to say, please do this. Like it's not, I know that you're short on time, but honestly, in the hierarchy of needs, like this is going to help you so much in the long term. So first, time. Second, energy. So 1 to 10, 1 would be something that's like mindless, takes zero energy from you. It's easy, just, boxes you have to check. 10 would be like completely depletes you. Like after you do it, you're like, okay, I'm like gasping for air here. Like I need a minute. And so rate all of those things. This in itself is such a great exercise to do because you can see like the things in your business that are depleting you. And it's not, again, there's balance because it's not always a bad thing, right? So like my client calls, they require a lot of energy to me. Like if I was going to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably give them like a 5, 6, maybe 7, depending on the conversation, depending on a lot of things, right? But with that, they also fuel me, right? And so it's just like I can have a conversation with a client and it's like, yes, there's a lot of energy. So I know I don't have as much energy to give, but I also know that there is a refilling effect that happens to where it's like the creative ideas of like how I can help people in different ways based on those conversations, etc. So 1 to 10, you're rating each thing, what depletes you, and then like I said, you're going to be able to see like, oh, wow, I've been doing this thing for a really long time that actually like sucks my soul out, that I hate. Like, why am I keeping this in my business? Or if it's something that you feel like you have to keep because it's just part of business, because we all have those things, then it's like, how can I do it more efficiently or better? So it can be really inspiring just to see and like audit and assess where things are. Right? And that's what we're doing here. So first, hours, second, energy scale. And this is just going to give you a lot of awareness around your capacity. So when you do this audit of your time and you do this audit of like where you're spending your energy, how you're spending your energy, what's depleting you, it really allows you to see how you can better gauge your capacity. And so if you break this down and you're like, okay, well, this service that I offer takes this amount of hours and requires this much energy, I can only do 2 of those per day or 3 of those per day. That's what we're looking for here. We're looking for some standards and some boundaries and some rules that we can put in place. So when I'm doing my clients' schedules, when we start working together, we put these rules in place because a lot of my clients, being service-based business owners, I have chiropractors, I have agency owners, I have financial specialists. Like I have people across all industries who are givers, who are helpers, who are impact-driven leaders. And so giving is easy. Ignoring your capacity is easy. And so this just kind of puts it right in front of your face. So one of the things that so after you have this awareness of, okay, well, this is how long this takes. This is where I need to put some rules around how much of this I do. Right? So if we think in terms of like sales and bringing on new clients and like do you know the capacity for your business? You know, usually the capacity of like, here's the hours that I work. But again, we're not, if you are a salon owner and every time you do like highlights, it makes you want to jump off a bridge. Like, number one, why are we still doing them? But number two, like, why don't we limit the amount that we're doing? Right. So one of my clients has a different service offerings that they offer through their wellness studio. And there are certain things that they do, certain services that they do that are super draining for her. So what we did is we actually put a max capacity of how many of those appointments per day. But then we also put a type of appointment that she does that's super easy, super mindless, like that she really enjoys. We staggered them. And so she has this type of appointment that's a little heavier, a little harder. And then she has like, I believe it's between 30 minutes or an hour of this other type of appointment. And that for her is like, okay, this is a little bit draining. This is hard. Okay, now I'm refilled. And so just changing the way in which she structured her day, because we really evaluated the capacity, allowed her to finally feel okay at the end of her day, because she has 2 longer days that are like 8 to 5, of course, with the lunch break in there. And those long days, she was so drained and depleted by the end of them that like she was just not functioning. She was just like going home, laying on the couch, like, household work was getting behind. Like her husband felt like he had to do everything. It was just causing a ripple effect of a lot of different things. And so just by restructuring her day, she found energy again. She found happiness again. And so this is why this is so important. And that's why it's also important for me to remind you, like, you can change anything in your business at any time. When I'm working with people to restructure like their businesses in a lot of different ways to promote more flexibility and freedom, it's scary. Which brings me to my next point in this topic, and that is you can assess and audit your time and have this and get really clear on this is what my capacity is going to be for this, and these are going to be my rules and my standards that I'm going to hold, and then these are going to be the boundaries that I need to protect these rules and these standards. And you can communicate that to your partner, across your team, of course, and to your clients, and that's wonderful. But in order to do that, you're going to have to get over the fear and the scarcity that we feel as business owners, because that's going to be there. And essentially, you have to choose between either doing something and being afraid while you do it, or choosing to continuously throw yourself under the bus, right? To continuously be overworked and overtired. And that really is what the choice comes down to. A lot of people have just accepted, almost with this victim mentality of like, well, I chose entrepreneurship, so this is just the way it is. No, it's not. Like, no, it's not. You're making that choice, so let's make a different choice, right? So I think that, again, you have to be okay with doing things afraid. You have to be okay with like, okay, is this going to make somebody mad? Are all my clients going to quit? Like, you can go through and have all those thoughts and challenge them, but you're going to have to take care of yourself, because at the end of the day, you're going to lose all your clients if you're burnt out and you can't serve anybody, right? So you're going to have to move through those fears of setting boundaries. And that's the only way to align with this capacity that you've set for yourself. And, I gave you the example of the one client who we just kind of restructured how her day was. And then I had another client who created an actual capacity tracker, so they knew exactly how many services of each type they could book. And they figured out that they needed to create a wait list. because they were booking over capacity. And she had been running on scarcity, thinking they needed to book more and more clients and have all these clients in the pipeline. And that was just something that she was creating. And she knew, the financials are fantastic, they're profitable, but it was just in her own mind, like the uncomfortableness of like not constantly like bringing new people into the doors. And again, a different topic for a different day, but it's so important for you to just understand and track what your capacity is. So the only way to do that, and you can absolutely create a capacity tracker based upon your services, right? List out the services that you have, the offerings that you have, how many can you do per week, per day, per month, etc. And then hold yourself to that, right? So when my clients implement these things, not only are they delivering better work, but they stop draining their teams, because again, there is a ripple effect that we don't realize that's bigger than us, and that ripple effect affects everybody outside of us in ways that we may not recognize, depending on how comfortable our team feels communicating with us. And so when you're piling this stuff on and when you're saying yes to all these things, you also have to think about the other people that are affected, right? And we carry enough mom guilt as mom entrepreneurs as it is. So if there's something that we can do to alleviate that, if that mom guilt is a calling to like, well, you're actually not being the mom that you want to be, and that's why you feel that way. So what do we need to do to align more with that? So you can deliver better quality of work, which will retain your clients, and you can stop draining your team. So then you have less team turnover because you have people that want to work with you. Because if you're overwhelmed and overextended and reactive and not leading well, you can be damn sure that your team is not as happy as they could be, right? So this tracking and knowing your capacity creates more sustainability and longevity for the business. It allows you to feel calmer, more in control, and peaceful, of course. And it gives you more time, right? Because you're actually setting and holding the boundaries that you want to. So questions for you to think through are, where are you really pushing yourself, your capacity, because you're afraid? And what boundaries are you not holding yourself to, even though you know better, because you're afraid? And are those fears valid? Are those fears true? Or are you letting fear dictate the way that you make decisions? And something that is really helpful for you to answer is, what choices would you make in your business if you knew that your success was inevitable? I think that for us women and mothers, we would spend a lot more time taking care of ourselves and paying attention to the people that we love and being present with them if we didn't feel that our businesses would fall apart if we did that. And so that's where we need to get honest with ourselves about how we're spending our time and our energy. And this is why tracking your capacity and making sure that you're not overworking is so important. So I'm going to walk through the steps that I want you to do one more time here. I want you to first assess your capacity by going through and putting down the time that everything takes you, as well as the energy that it takes you. And then I want you to audit that capacity by doing a comparison of what you would like, the changes that you would like to see, how many hours you would like to be working, creating those rules for yourself on how many per day, per week, per month, etc. And then I would like for you to think about the boundaries that you need in place. I would like for you to think about where you need to delegate. And then I would like for you to some way, somehow actually track your capacity. So even if that is just with the services that you offer and limiting those to a certain number offered per month, per quarter, per year, whatever the frequency is, paying attention to that and actually holding yourself to that. Thank you guys so much for being here, for listening, for joining me at the table. I love having these open conversations. I love that I'm finding my groove in recording these again, honestly. And so next week we are talking about hiring without the headache, hiring and building your team and sustaining your team and not having a lot of turnover and building good team culture, being good leaders, like these are a lot of the conversations that I have with clients because my clients have teams. And so I want to just walk through the hiring process and kind of some before the hire, during the hiring, and after the hiring process that will be really, really helpful for you as you continue to grow. As always, I love to hear from you. Please send me, screenshot this, tag me when you're listening, send me your takeaways, send me anything that you would love some insights on or for me to record an episode on. I am here and I've created this as a table for it to feel and be collaborative. I want to help as many mom founders as possible. So please share your thoughts, give me your questions, share your experiences, your takeaways. I love to hear it all on Instagram at the Mom Founders Table. And yeah, let's stay connected. And last but not least, of course, make sure that you grab the Female Founders Freedom Framework. It is my free guide that is teaching you how to actually restructure your business for more freedom and flexibility. So what we talked about today is just a small piece of the pie when it comes to your time and your energy. I'm addressing 8 key areas of the business that you need to have structured in a certain way so that you can have time, freedom, and flexibility. So make sure that you check that out because that is free, and the link will be in the show notes for that. So thank you again for listening, and I will see you guys next week.